Good evening, Rockdale County, and welcome to This Week from Rockdale, the midweek report. Do we have some exciting show for you tonight? We're going to talk about lies, deception, and more lies. Now, who in the world could be doing the lying, the deceiving, and more lying? None other than the Rockdale County Board of Commission. So, what I want to talk about first tonight, let's go ahead and do this. Share the show, like the show. And if you want to let your friends know, a little bit later on, we're going to talk about the county, the city, not the city. My goodness, I'm getting ahead of myself. The state has filed a lawsuit against the county regarding to the SPLOST. You heard it. The state filed a lawsuit against the county regarding the SPLOST. So we're going to talk about that a little later, but we're going to talk about lies and deception and all that nonsense this Board of Commission does. So share this show. Call your friends. Tell them to tune in because they need to hear about this. So I'm going to share something up here right now, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this information. And if we look and it opened a question about, the breakdown of the source of the 2022 revenue of the 93,000. The budget is going to count 83.7 million plus 9.8 million from increased millage rate of 8.12. Where will the 6.6 million for courthouse improvement funds come from? 6 million will come from increase of the millage rate. It'll come from the 8.69. What is the breakdown of the cost of the 6.6 million courthouse improvement expenses? 6.6 million will go for bond debt payment for courthouse. How much is available from reserves to cover this expense? We can't use any reserves for this purpose. And if you remember, the PFA legislation did restrict what funds could be used to pay for PFA bonds. So that's that. And remember that $6.6 million, and the $6.6 million is going to go for bond debt payment for the courthouse. Now, so right now, there has been no bonds issued for the courthouse. None. We don't even actually have a plan for a courthouse, a concept for the courthouse. An architectural firm is being hired to come up with a concept drawing and such for the courthouse, which has not happened yet. So let's go to look at some information about the PFA right now. So we're going to look at this, and we're going to look at this source comes from and it's Facility Authority frequently asked questions. And this is from their revised information after they revised the PFA. Will there be transparency? The PFA and the county are subject to open meetings and open record laws. No financing can be done without the approval of the authority and the county in public meetings. The law creating the PFA will require that a public hearing be held by the PFA prior to the issuance of bonds for the benefit of the county. Bonds issued by the authority must be validated by the Superior Court. A notice of validation hearing must be published in the legal organ once a week for 2 weeks preceding the hearing. So as we see this, it says that the authority must have meetings for the public. They have to have plans. They have to have what the bonds are going to be issued, the rate, and all that. We'll go over to financing in a minute. So let's just make some things clear. The county has not began the process of forming the PFA, the authority. No members of the authority exist right now. The authority doesn't exist. No plans or concept of a courthouse exist. No bond entity has been reached out to, no entity to issue bonds for this, because first, there's no organization to PFA to request the bonds. There have been no hearings because there's no PFA, and there is no concept. So what's going on? So what we have is, and we'll go back to something else here indirectly. We've got the share again. We've got the county has requested in their budget and millage rate to increase the millage rate to get $6.6 million. That $6 million will go for bond debt payment for the courthouse. We are pre-collecting funds for an authority that doesn't exist, for public meetings that have yet to happen, for a concept and plans that don't exist. And I do know that the county promised the state legislature they would not do this. So, guys, and the Board of Commission ask us, why don't you trust us? Why don't you trust? And it's maybe because they do this kind of sneaky, backhanded, low-life nonsense to the citizens of Rockdale County all the time. They are trying to pre-tax us on something could happen, and this authority never go in place, never have public hearings, bonds might not be issued, but yet we're going to be taxed for something that doesn't exist. And then when everybody went to these meetings the last 2 weeks, and we had this 350 plus individuals show up to that millage rate hearing yesterday, that was powerful. Charlotte, they did call for that $6.6 million to be courthouse improvements, but you can look clearly on the ORR, and I believe you might have sent it to me or somebody, that it clearly states the $6.6 million will go to bond debt for the courthouse. I also have sources. I have sources that have informed me that exactly is what this was for. I have sources that tell me, and not only sources, we saw Sherry Washington rat out the commission yesterday. We saw Sherry Washington make the statement that when they told her that's what that 6.6 was for, she was not going to go for it. She couldn't stand by it, and she couldn't vote for it because it's not what they promised the state legislature when the legislature agreed to grant them the PFA. They told the legislature they wouldn't pre-tax. They wouldn't start taxing the individuals on something that didn't exist. They promised this. And then what do? They go back on their words. And I'll tell you, if people that were in the room, we got to see the reaction of the other two commissioners. When Sherry Washington began to tell this story, and when she got to that specific point about what that 6.6 million was for, those other two commissioners faced each other. They looked at each other, their mouths open and their jaws dropped. They could not believe the words that were coming out of Sherry Washington's mouth. They couldn't believe that she was ratting them out for deceiving and lying and being manipulative to the citizens of Rockdale County. No, there's no other way to describe this behavior. That these 2 extra meals from taking it from 1669 to 1869, these 2 extra mills, Sherry Washington clearly stated, would collect the $6.6 million that was going to go toward bond payment, bond debt payment for the future loans, the future bonds that the county was going to take out on behalf of the PFA. So, guys, let me just tell you, me, Alex McDonald, George Kellichek, Corliss Turner, Charlotte Geller, the list goes on. We told the citizens, the taxpayers of Rockdale County, what this PFA was really all about. We told the taxpayers with the SPLOST what was going to happen and how that would empower the county to do what they wanted to us. But no, trust us. Trust us. We're the county. Trust us. Trust us. We know what we're doing. Lisa, I'll answer that question here in a second. Lisa Lancaster asked me a question. And I did ask this today, and I'll tell you the question here in a minute, answer it in a minute. So, as of now, this is only a proposal. And the county hasn't voted on it. And they're going to vote on this next Tuesday. Now it's only a proposal. So, if the county doesn't enact the extra $6.6 million and they've just talked about it, then there is nothing the legislature can do. But if they do implement it, it violates the trust of the legislature and they could do something. Send a letter, a resolution, maybe even take their PFA away. It could happen, really could happen. But I got a feeling that they're going to back off on this $6.6 million now that Sherry Washington told on the rest of them. She tattletaled. I'm glad she tattletaled. Thank you, Sherry Washington, for tattletaling on your coworkers. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate it, and we say thank you for doing the right thing, because that was the right thing to do. CJ Lester, I agree with you 100%. I am going to put CJ's comment up here. I think Sherry is doing all this to save her own butt from the citizens' backlash on her behind their disbar. I 100% agree with you, CJ Lester. I 100% agree with you. So, when we look at this type of nonsense and we see what the county has done, we've got nothing but to wonder, what are we thinking when we elect these individuals and we send them to office? What are we thinking when we vote for these characters? I believe that there will be enough events that occur that the voters of Rockdale County will have enough and they will say, na, 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 goodbye. I think that will happen. I really do, because I have faith in people and that people eventually will make the right decision because they see enough corruption, enough deception, and enough lies. And this board, when they first introduced the first PFA, which was the Dream PFA, which is the I'm going to abuse and use you PFA, unlimited funding PFA. Guys, there was no safeguards that we could do in this legislation that these clowns would not try to find a back door around. And they definitely tried to find a back door around it. It is ridiculous. Do you not think, or did they not think, that we would eventually figure this out or somehow want to know what was going on? And we've got individuals in this county who are diligent with the ORR request. They ask a lot of questions, and if the answer doesn't seem sort of kosher, they ask another question and another question. And that's what the city, that's what we have a group of people that do. And I have it from good sources, the county, a lot of county employees, different county elected officials, that the only 3 individuals who are sad or disappointed or even hurt about what happened in the last couple of weeks with the citizens coming to those meetings and giving it to those three commissioners are those three commissioners. Because actually, people are talking about how this community has come together. We've come together. Race didn't matter. Political affiliation didn't matter. There was one common denominator, and that was the fact that it was Rockdale County citizens, Rockdale County taxpayers, who felt this Board of Commission was taking advantage of them and exploiting them, misleading them, lying to them, and deceiving them. And that is exactly what was happening. So it's just crazy. It is just crazy. So now, you've got yesterday during their budget hearings or whatever, they decided, they're going to be transparent, and they voted, they want to do a forensic audit. But they said they wanted the finance director to bring them some options forward. So they've really not agreed to it. They've agreed to look at some options to possibly do a forensic audit. And we'll have to see how this pans out, because it's not a done deal. It's let's look at some options to do a forensic audit. And then if the Board of Commission is in charge of overseeing their own forensic audit, do you trust that audit? Okay, this is the Larry Cox. Oh, hell no. How many of you guys trust the Rockdale County Board of Commission to oversee a company doing their own forensic audit? I do not trust that scenario one bit. The answer is, oh, hell no. That would be ridiculous to let these bunch of clowns be in charge of looking over their own forensic audit. CJ Lester, I'm going to put this comment up because I 100% agree with you. I can see Doreen Williams voting no for the audit. 100%, CJ Lester. I agree with you 100%. I do see Doreen Williams voting no for the forensic audit because she don't want the dirty laundry put out there for all to see. And I guarantee you there's some stains in that laundry. There's stains in that laundry they don't want people to see. So I'm going to talk a little bit about something else that came to our attention today. So got this document right here. It's a very confusing document, okay? And this is a suit that has been filed in the Rockdale County Superior Court. It has been filed on behalf of the state of Georgia by the District Attorney's Office. And the state of Georgia is suing the county apparently because of not filing the question properly regarding not having an audit for the SPLOST. So I've had 3 attorneys look at this already today, and this is the best of what they can determine. A couple of them are going to look at this tonight, really research it, give me some information tomorrow. So what I'm going to do is, I'll have this information, may come on and do a special early tomorrow before the TPS report comes on. I may come on at 8 for a half hour and clarify what this lawsuit is actually about. But the attorneys that I spoke with, they feel that this suit is by the state of Georgia of stopping the issuing of bonds until the county can answer questions regarding why they feel that they should be exempt from audits for the SPLOST. So, and they stated the Georgia code about the audits being occurred for the SPLOST, and they feel that maybe this part of the SPLOST question was not valid, and that what could happen is that the county, they may state that your bonds can be issued only if you agree to the audit of the SPLOST. Now, I'm going to tell you what, guys, right now, this bunch of clowns does not want that SPLOST being audited because they violate that dog all day long, because the majority of that SPLOST is M&O. And by state law, you're not supposed to use, by state law passed regarding the SPLOST legislation. The SPLOST is not supposed to be used for M&O projects, only for capital expenditures. So it's going to be, like I said, I'm not going to dig into that tonight because I've got some folks that are a lot smarter than me looking at that. And trust me, those folks that are a lot smarter than me were as confused as me when they looked at that piece of legal jargon. So I'm going to let those individuals look at that legal jargon, decipher it, get back with me about what it is. But this case is going to be heard August the 15th at 8:50 a.m. in Judge Nancy Beal's office, in the court, I mean. So I recommend that, hey, I intend on going because I want to see what's going on. I want to hear this case be presented to the Superior Court. I want to know why the state of Georgia, for real, thinks these bonds shouldn't be issued. I want to know why. I want to know why they have, filed this case that this county should justify these bonds and the request for no audits. Guys, when a county fights something being audited that's sort of black and white, you spend the money this way, this way, this way, and there shouldn't be any controversy, and the county wants to restrict audits or they want to exempt audits, wouldn't that be something? Why would they do that? Why would county government not want full disclosure and transparency? I'm just telling you. I mean, when I look at this, it confuses me, and I'm going to again because I want to read this again to you. I want to, right here it says, "Will there be transparency with the PFA?" The PFA and the county are subject to open meetings and open record laws. No financing can be done without the approval of the authority and the county in public meetings. The law creating the PFA will require that a public hearing be held by PFA prior to the issuance of bonds for the benefit of the county. Bonds issued by the authority must be validated by the Superior Court. Okay, let me ask you guys, okay, this thing clearly states you've got to do all this to be able to issue the bonds, and you wouldn't really start collecting money until after all this is done. So to me, it all goes together. Collecting money for something that you've not done sort of puts the cart before the horse. And that's actually that's crazy. That is crazy. We're going to read a little bit more here. We're going to go into this and we're going to say, okay, what is the process for a PFA financing? The county will assess its capital needs and the potential source of funding. If the county, together with its financial advisor, determines that a capital project should be funded by the issuance of authority bonds, the county will provide the authority with a project financing request. Guys, I do not think that a project financing request was requested to start collecting money to pay for this bond that doesn't exist yet. The request will include a general description of the project, estimated cost of the project, and the sources of the funds that county will use to make payments to the authority. SPLOST, the general fund, SPLOST, user fees, etc. The county, together with its financial advisor, will provide assurance that the authority's bonds will be rated A, A2, or better by a national rating agency that the bonds will be in compliance with the county's financial policies, including its debt policy. the authority will hold a public hearing for the project prior to its approval of the bond issuance and validation of the bonds as described under the transparency. So, guys, I'm just asking you right now. This all says that before they got to identify how they're going to pay for it. They're going to tell you the sources of the money. But the first thing they got to do is they got to have a project. They got to have a project. You got to have an authority. You got to have a project. Then you got to identify your payment sources, and then you're able to go to the public, have a public meeting, and then they vote on it. Let me ask the citizens that are watching this show right now, that any of this process take place before this county decided to start assessing taxes against you, the taxpayer, the property owners of Rockdale County, to pay for a bond that hasn't been issued yet by authority that hasn't been actually created or any members appointed to? The answer is no. So then I ask you this: how can you trust this Board of Commission when they've already started their snake charming and their deception games with this kind of nonsense? You tell me how we can trust this Board of Commission when they've already begun these shenanigans and these games. How can we believe that now that we know that they're doing this, looking for loopholes, that they won't look for loopholes in this delegation that sunsetted this authority to only last 50 years or so, the $110 million supposed limit? How do we know that we were given these assurances but because of these safeguards, that these things wouldn't happen? Because of these safeguards, they wouldn't be able to tax us before any of this happened for this. But we see, it's very apparent that that's what they intend on doing. We're going to look at that again, guys. We're going to look at it again. What is the breakdown of cost of the $6.6 million courthouse improvement expense? Answer: $6.6 million will go for bond debt payment for the courthouse. The $6.6 million is going to go for bond debt payment to the courthouse. It's going to go to bond debt payment for bonds that don't exist, from authority that hasn't been created or members appointed to, public hearings that haven't happened, by the authority that doesn't exist, by the plans of the project we're supposed to be looking at. No plans for the project. No authority exists. No public meetings have occurred. But yes, we're going to already start collecting monies from the taxpayers of Rockdale County. Catherine Lynn asked a very important question right now. I'm going to put this up. Dan, wrong. You jumped in on me, Catherine. How is this legal? And that is the $6.6 million question. How is this legal? How is this legal? Dan Burke's question. Dan, yes, the county prosecutor is representing the taxpayers at the upcoming hearing. They were requested by the state of Georgia to represent the taxpayers. That's in the affidavit. So, but going back to Catherine's, how is this legal? That is the $6.6 million question. How can this be legal? How can this be ethical? And how can this be doing right by the taxpayers of Rockdale County? If it's not, if it is legal, it should be illegal. It's definitely not ethical. And it's definitely not doing right by the taxpayers of Rockdale County. It's definitely not representative government representing the constituent like they would want to be done. This is absolutely crazy. This is absolutely ridiculous, guys. This is, what do you do? What do you do? This is crazy. If you and I tried to collect money for, let's just say, CJ is thinking about building a house. He's thinking about building a house, right? But or he's thinking about starting this business. Doesn't have a business plan, doesn't have a business, doesn't have anything. But he gives out and collects some money and says he's doing this, whatever. You know, people get arrested for that every day. It's called a Ponzi scheme. Ponzi scheme. It's fraudulently collecting money for something that really doesn't exist. It is illegal. If you or I did this, we would go to jail. If you and I went and raised funds, collected something for something that didn't exist, didn't even have a concept, we would get in trouble. We would go to jail. We'd be arrested for fraud. We would be defrauding those investors. And the investors here that are being defrauded are the taxpayers of Rockdale County, the homeowners. Tommy Lee wants to ask a question. Tommy Lee, is this an issue that can be used to help remove them from office? I believe this does qualify as malfeasance. There are many things they've done that I believe qualify as malfeasance that could be subject to recall. But guys, let's talk about the recall process for a minute. For a local official, the recall process is this. You file your petition, it has to be accepted in Superior Court. If it is accepted, then issued, you have 90 days to collect 30% of the signatures of those that were qualified voters during the general election that they were done. I think I did the numbers. That's over 19,000 voters that would have to sign a petition within 90 days in Rockdale County to do a recall on Osneth, Mr. Sherry Washington. That is a high bar. It's very difficult. That's why you don't have a lot of recalls, because it takes 90 days. It's only a 90-day cycle to get 30%. Now, there is a 10. People will look it all up, and it says 10%. The 10% is for state and district. Anybody elected by a state or a statewide office or a statewide district office, like a state senator, house district, whatever, that is 10%, because those districts are at least 100,000 people. So that's why, they've got that lesser threshold. So when it's not a lesser threshold, it's still a lot of people. So, but, it's like, so the county, it's 30% of those individuals who are registered voters. So that's maybe about 19,000 people that we would have to get to do a petition for recall in a 90-day cycle. That's hard to do, tough threshold. I mean, if somebody wants to do that, feel free to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be involved in that. I have too many other fires to stoke, as you might say. Too many other pokers in the fire that I'm trying to handle. That's just one thing that I'm not willing to do when I don't feel that a 90-day time period is sufficient to get 19,000 signatures to do a recall. And if, like I say, you would want to recall all of them, then it would take 19,000 signatures for each one of them. So, yes, Robert Thomas, I'm going to put that up. That's, valid as I'll get out. Took less than 10,000 to vote them in, but 19 to remove them. That's You know, Robert, when you got politicians that create the law to remove themselves, they're going to make it a high threshold, high bar. It's a high bar. It'd be just like a pastor who has a board, and the board votes to remove him, but in his bylaws, he's got that he can override the board. So, I got to know that happened one time. I think it was a board wanted to throw out this false prophet I knew, and his but he vetoed his own board. So, but he had that authority, it's in his bylaws. So there it goes. But guys, just think about this whole thing that went down. Think about these tax increase hearings that we've had. Think about the brave citizens who got up there and they spoke from their heart. They spoke what they felt. I mean, this is ridiculous that we've got to put up with this stuff. So you know what, guys? And this is what I firmly believe. I firmly believe this community has had enough. I believe this community is tired of these individuals and their pea and shell game, of their lying, their deception, and their manipulating. Because that's all they do. Lie, deceive, and manipulate. You, the taxpayer, the citizen of Rockdale County. And you don't deserve this. You deserve better. Like I said, if we could recall these characters, I would do it tomorrow. I will support somebody doing it, but you're going to have to do it. Not going to lead this effort. I am going to lead the effort to get the signatures for the host legislation. Much more reasonable goal. 6,000, no time limit. That's doable. 6,000, no time limit. So, I plan to get those signatures between now and March. Get those signatures, present them to the Board of Elections, get that on the ballot November of 23. So your host tax can go to 100%, going to reduce your property taxes. I'm going to work with this state legislature to promote change in the way we collect taxes against senior citizens. I'm going to work with this state legislature to implement governmental change in Rockdale County to get 5 commissioners and a county manager. I am going to work with this local delegation to do that because I believe there's interest in that now. I believe this local delegation, after feeling betrayed by these commissioners, realize that there needs to be a professional at the helm of the Board of Commission. There needs to be a professional county manager that runs the day-to-day operation of this county. That the power of these 3 commissioners needs to be diluted. That there needs to be 5 commissioners in this county elected by district. I believe that there are many of the local delegation who feel that this is necessary now because of the actions of these 3. I believe this. And I believe if we, the citizens, bond together and we request of our delegation that they do these things, this delegation will follow our lead. They will follow our request, and they will do as we ask, and they will implement this legislation. Because you, the citizen, government is not supposed to be anything more than an extension of your voice. And it's very clear this Board of Education and I keep saying Board of Education is useless too. They don't get it either. But this Board of Commission has clearly demonstrated that they don't respect you and they don't value you. And it's time for you to say enough is enough. Next election, rid yourself of this. Get a couple more people in office. Hopefully we can expand this commission and get more people in office. Since I have mentioned the Board of Education tonight, let's go there. The Board of Education is the biggest problem we have in Rockdale County. Now, this Board of Commission is corrupt and bad and doesn't listen and deceive and lie. I think the Board of Education is even worse, but that they just ignore you and don't give a damn. They ignore you and don't give a damn. They just vote it and do it. They are the entity that taxes the hell out of you. That's the entity that will eventually cripple our senior citizens and put them in poverty. They already are in poverty. They're the ones that are going to make our senior citizens homeless. It is the Board of Education through their excessive spending and overtaxing. I call for in a few weeks when the next Board of Education meeting occurs. I think they are having one maybe tomorrow night, but it's just too soon to organize. I think the Board of Education meeting after this week, we need to organize. We need to get 250 people to go to their meeting. Demand that they void their millage rate vote, that they void the proposed budget, and they start over. We demand they make cuts, and we demand that they reduce the millage rate, reduce taxes, stop playing games with the millage rate, and they represent the citizens of Rockdale County, the taxpayer. I'm going to get with my friends at Voices for Rockdale, myself and Ken Holmes with the Rockdale Voter. I actually had a nice conversation with Brian Jenkins, president of the NAACP, yesterday, and he wants to get involved in this effort with the NAACP. And I welcomed him with open arms to join the effort, to join with the citizens of Rockdale County and the rest of these nonpartisan organizations to defend those who can't defend themselves. And I'm going to call upon Brian, president of NAACP, Corliss Turner, the founder of the Voices for Rockdale, myself and Ken Holmes, the founders of the Rockdale Voter, to organize individuals to go to the Board of Education meeting, just like we did the Board of Commission, because that's what we need to do. This Board of Commission needs to know that we are serious about this. This Board of Commission this Board of Education, needs to understand that their day is coming too. I believe the citizens have one ally on that Board of Education, and I believe that's Sandra Jackson. In 2024, there are 5 seats coming up for election for that Board of Education. I encourage the Rockdale Voter, Voices for Rockdale, and the NAACP to find 5 candidates that will represent the taxpayer, that will run against those 5 incumbents and take our endorsements and get victory for the taxpayers of Rockdale County. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to do. That's what I would like to see happen. That 5 true nonpartisan, independent candidates endorsed by 3 nonpartisan organizations run against those 5 individuals and defeat them and undo all the damage to this county that Board of Education is doing. That Board of Education, in my opinion, is the single culprit that is bankrupting the taxpayer of Rockdale County, that is going to force the senior citizen of Rockdale County into homelessness, into selling their homes, into losing their independent living. Because I talked to some seniors yesterday before that millage rate tax increase hearing, and they said, if I sell my home, where do I go? If I sell my home, I still want to live in Rockdale County. I buy another home, I won't be able to afford the taxes there either. So where do I go? How do I live on my fixed income? Where do I go? Dan Burks asked a question. I do want to put that up there, Dan, because we don't know. And maybe Janie Jones. And the answer to that is, I've not said defeat Janie Jones in 4 years yet, have I? Not said a word. We don't know how Janie Jones is going to represent the taxpayer of Rockdale County because Janie's not on the Board of Education yet. She won't be till January. And we need to see how Janie represents us. We don't know. But we'll find out. And when we find out, if she doesn't represent the citizens, then we'll say, let's nominate somebody and run against her. But right now, I can tell you the only person that I feel comfortable saying, let's keep in that office is Sandra Jackson-Lett. The only person. Sandra Jackson-Lett is the only person I feel comfortable in saying, let's keep on the Board of Education. That's how I see it. It's what I feel. Guys, I have ranted and I have raved and I have bashed this Board of Education. I have bashed this Board of Commission. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't want to live anywhere else but Rockdale County. I don't want to go anywhere. But I sure don't want these folks representing me to stay representing me. I want change. I wanted change yesterday, but I'm not getting it. I'd love change today, but I know it's not going to happen. But I have faith. I have faith that you, the taxpayers of Rockdale County, have seen through the deception, the lies, and the manipulation. And in the year 2024, there will be a reckoning. There'll be a second coming. There'll be a second coming of the voter. And the voter will say, we've had enough. We have seen the light. And you shall represent us no more. That's what I see. And I will encourage you the next 2 years. I will be that voice of encouragement. I will be that voice of leadership. I will be that voice that will guide you through the darkness to the light. Because somebody has to stand and be the torchbearer. And I will do that because I care for the citizens of Rockdale County. I care for the senior citizens of Rockdale County. And I care of the future of Rockdale County. I bid you good night. And I ask you to help me in this cause and help me make Rockdale a better place in the future. Thank you and good night.